Welcome to Voices from the Field podcast presented by Extra Innings Softball, where the stories are real, the conversations are honest, and the game goes way beyond the field. We're bringing you insight, inspiration, and all things softball from the people shaping the sport.
Welcome back to Extra Inning Voices from the Field podcast. I am super excited for a plethora of reasons with our special guest today. She's a powerhouse at the plate. She probably still can out-hit at least 3/4 of the college softball players in today's game. If you never saw her swing, you missed out. She's a legend within our game as far as the SEC, two-time SEC Player of the Year, which is, I don't know how many times that's ever been done. I didn't do my research on that, but I'm going to. Played at Mississippi State at 2001 to 2004. And unfortunately, I was at Arkansas during the time. So I was plethora of times on the end of her bat of not in my favors. Pretty much excited to have her. She was in the NPF in 2004, and you played for the Akron Razors, if I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And she went on there to be an MVP. So in 2004, she was the MVP in the SEC and the MVP in the NPF and the Pro League. So I get to call her Iyhia, but she's known in Texas as Dr. Mac. She does a ton of hitting lessons. Let's see what else I can say about her. She coaches the 15U USA team, just got back from Italy. I stalk her on Facebook so I could see all those great stories going on. They brought back the bronze, which is incredible. And she's probably her favorite title is a mother of her son, Ian. And I think he's going to be the next legend that we follow because I think he's built just like her. And I was telling Katie earlier before we got started that I was watching you give him or throw to him hitting wise. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's Iyhia's swing. So her swing is definitely genetic. I'm not sure if she can teach her swing, but it's definitely genetic when I watch her son. So I would like to welcome to you, and I'm going to call her Dr. Matt because she also has her doctorate in education. So if there's anybody qualified to kind of talk the whole game of softball with us, it's pretty cool. And not only that, she's a sister in Christ. So that makes me super excited. So welcome, Iyhia.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
That's great. So I guess what I'd like to talk to and just really bring out is you've just recently, or at least it's recent when you're old my age, talking about being inducted into the Hall of Fame at Mississippi State. Tell us a little bit about that journey, what it meant. I know you had your mom and dad next to you. Tell us what that was, because I know your son was there. So you had 3 generations of McMichaels sitting there and watching it right smack in the middle of a big, huge SEC football game. So tell me what that was all about.
It was really awesome. I remember I was getting coffee on the way to work and I saw a 662 number and I'm thinking, who do I know from Mississippi that's calling? So I went ahead and answered in the parking lot, and he was like, I just want to be the first to tell you that you are a part of our 2024 class of Hall of Fame. And I almost dropped my coffee. It was just like, it's just really, really cool to be recognized. I think that for me, I don't ever do it for accolades. I just was brought up in a blue collar family and you just worked hard. And so to feel or to be recognized at that magnitude at the university that I love so much was really, really special. And so I'm kind of getting choked up talking about it, but it was really awesome to have my parents in the audience. So when I was thinking about my speech, I wanted to make sure that I encompassed everything about that dynamic because my dad was my high school coach. My mom coached me when I was younger, and then my dad took over as I got older. And so I wanted to make sure that I recognized both of them because they played such an integral part of that. And so in my speech, I talked about how my dad, he always said, like, you're good, but you're not there yet. And so that was part of my speech because it drove me. I'm so competitive. It drove me to just continue to make sure that I never stop learning and stop developing. And so I always tell people it wasn't in like a negative way. It fueled me. And so every mountain that I climbed, that was something that he'd always said. And so like I kind of capstone that speech in saying like, Dad, I've made it and I know that you're proud. And so just being a part of that class and being, the first Black softball player at Mississippi State to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, that was something that I wanted to make sure that I captured. And then just having my son there, we were both competitive, but it was still pretty awesome to see like in his eyes, like I know that he was proud. And so that made me emotional as well. But it was really special to have all of them there and just knowing that they were all part of that process to getting that phone call. So it was pretty special.
Calling all softball parents, our Parent Hub is built just for you. Get tips on navigating recruiting, supporting your athlete, and understanding the game. It's a one-stop shop for answers, resources, and support. So visit our website, extrainningsoftball.com, go to the news tab, and click on Parent Hub. You're not in this alone.
That's really cool. So my question to you, because I have a history, like I recruited and she was there, and I can read, this is so weird. Like I had this flashback when you're talking, and it was somewhere in Texas, and I can't remember where it was, but you probably don't remember because I was some old lady just stalking you to try to recruit and stuff. But you were with Cat Austin when you guys had just finished a game, and you were walking across the parking lot, and you were with your dad. Katie, when I tell you her arms were like jets, her arm, like she put them up, and I was like, dang, that's impressive. Like, I don't even care if you can catch and play softball. I just want you in a uniform. Like that to me was, and I can remember looking at that. And when I saw your induction, I was like, I was there to witness the beginning, like to see that very beginning. And even though I was only a part of some of her beatings, it was so cool to see it, because what she's talking about is something that I think is the it that all college coaches are looking for in today, that it's self-driven and it's that thing. And I was talking to somebody yesterday that I said, you know how you can see a Power 4 athlete is they're just wired different.
Mm-hmm.
They're wired different. And it's a lot of times when you say that, people go, well, what does that mean? Well, it's all the things that irritates everybody else. It's I'm going to go work out the third time today, or I'm going to out hit my son at 50 years old. Like it's all of those things. And it's, to be honest with you, it's not something that ever goes away. And so we, as those kind of athletes, have to find a different way to fulfill that. And for me, it's just passing it on, obviously, to my daughter, and then passing it on to the next generation and finding those athletes. Because for me, that to me is the one I'm always looking for, those athletes that are just where they never think missing a slumber party is a sacrifice. They never see those things. So looking back, and this is a question I have for you, can you think of a pivotal moment in your really young career that you went, this is it, I'm going? Like it's softball. I mean, heck, you could have done track. You could have done weightlifting. I don't know if you've done basketball. You're too short for that. So we won't even go there. But
I did.
Well, in high school, but SEC Power 4, I'm thinking you might have been too short, but you don't know.
Yeah.
You're so competitive, you would have been the ankle biter. So that's okay. With that, was there a moment, or are there several moments that you're willing to share with us that you go, that was my aha moment?
Yeah, that's so funny that you brought that up, because I was talking about that with Coach Kyla and Coach G in Italy, because I was thinking, when was that moment? I asked him a question. When was that moment that you were like, I think I have something pretty special? And so for me, I tell this story, and it's probably one of my favorite stories. So I played volleyball, basketball, and softball, and I got recruited in all three. So I remember sitting at the table, and my parents had a very candid conversation. My parents did a phenomenal job of speaking truth. Like, this is where you are. If you want to get to this point, this is what you have to do. But they did a really good job of saying, like, if you're going to go for it, then you have to meet me halfway. I'm not going to have to be the one that gets you up and gets you going. And so we had a conversation at the dinner table, and my parents put down three, like in the sports. So my volleyball and basketball were smaller D1s, and then my softball was Power 5. And they said, you have a choice, but here is where you are in each of the sports. You have to decide which route you want to go. You have to decide that. And so I had a decision at the table, and I wanted to be at the best and the highest level that I could possibly be. And softball is the avenue that afforded me that opportunity. I think that was one of the things that I was like, whoa, like I have a really good shot to do this. And my mom will say, and she likes to tell this story, she would say, when I would get in my recruiting letters, she would say, I thought she was good, but I didn't realize she was that good. And I was like, thanks, Mom. So, but we just kind of chuckle about it, because like, we didn't know, like, we're from small town East Texas. And so, as we kept traveling to Houston and different areas, I think that it was like a wake up call, like, hey, I actually can do this. And I didn't realize I was doing this then. But when I think back, every time I left a tournament, I would always like self reflect, like, where am I compared to everyone else? And then where am I good? And so like I would go home and like figure out like how to make those weaknesses my strengths. And I think that pushed me. And it's kind of funny to think that that's the way I was wired at that point in my time, because I didn't have any idea. All I knew was to work hard. And so I think that was a good aha moment. And then the other one, Jessica Allister, who's the head softball coach at Stanford, she was my catcher in high school. So I pitched, she caught, but we did the same. We played volleyball, basketball, and softball. And I remember we were both getting recruited at the same time, like pretty much the same schools. And I remember walking in the high school and we'd be kind of sitting in the bleachers and I would say like Florida, and then she would like Stanford. And so it was just kind of like that thing, like, hey, we have something really special. And then our parents did a really good job of fueling that. But I think, like, to my parents' credit, they didn't do it themselves. They were like, this is what you want, you got to go do it. And so I feel like, I know that there was times that I didn't want to do it, but I remember having conversations with my parents like, okay, at some point you got to like recover and rest, because like you're doing it too much. So I think those two instances were probably one of my like aha moments of like, you have something really special and other people see it, so let's pursue it to the best of your ability.
That's awesome. I love that.
Really cool. Yeah, well, going off of your success, and I think I'm interested to hear your answer to this, because you were a player, you're a coach, you have a child now that's playing. Kind of wrapping that all up. And this question is, how do you stay humble and hungry? You've been successful. You've got all those accolades. You just got into, the Hall of Fame, all that kind of stuff. Like, what's your biggest piece of advice to people, to stay humble, and still stay hungry, even though you've already achieved, so much in your career, and obviously now coaching and all that kind of stuff, like how you stay hungry for it and humble at the same time?
I love that question, and I want to answer it in like the two different ways. So again, like my parents were like, you don't want to be an ugly athlete. You don't want to be somebody who's like really talented and have a really bad attitude. So I think that was ingrained in my head from a very young age of like, you do what you're supposed to do, but you also have to make sure that you're good to people. And so my parents were that example for me. And I feel like that's something that's ingrained in who I am. And interesting enough, I was just thinking the other day, like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. Like I feel like I forget. I'm like, how can I help? Because right now it's like, how can I fuel? How can I help? How can I add value to athletes? Like, what else could I learn to help them be better? And I feel like I'm not doing enough. But also, I've had really, really good people in my life who said to that point, like, they say, Mac, like, you have to also remember what you've done. Like, you can't just suppress it to the point that you forget. And that part of me makes me emotional, because I feel like when I do have something that's exciting, or I do earn something that's really good, I just kind of push it down, because I don't want to feel like I'm the one like gloating about it. And so I do feel like that's challenging, because it's like, how do I appreciate how far I've come without like pushing it and making someone be like, okay, that's enough. And so I see other athletes or people do it all the time. And I'm like, gosh, like, how do you walk into a room and say like, hey, this is like, I'm worthy to have a seat at the table, but also humble enough to say like, let's have a conversation. I feel like that balance is still hard for me. And then something that I heard a couple of years ago, I was scrolling through Instagram, and the guy was saying like, sometimes you can be so humble that you disappear in a room. And that kind of spoke to me, because I'm like, I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, like I don't even belong here. And so like, I don't want to contribute. And so I'm still trying to find that balance, because like sometimes I just feel like I'm just Iyhia McMichael from Nacogdoches, Texas, who grew up in the country town. And, but then like when Carrie was reading all those things, I'm like, gosh, like part of me was like, who is she talking about? Like I just feel like sometimes I back away from it so much that I'm like detached from it. And so I'm trying to learn that balance. I think it's hard though.
Well, I can tell you, I'm a few years older than you, quite a few. You're coming to that next decade in your life where you go and you hear those things that people say about you and go, I'm old. I'm old. So that will be the humbling part that you can hold on to.
Oh my gosh.
People start saying something, I go, no wonder my body hurts. I'm old. So that is literally right around the corner for you.
Oh my
But
gosh.
don't dwell on it too long. It's coming right around the corner. I want to transition and skip one segment, come back to, I want to go to the doctor is in with hitting, because I feel like this is such an incredible opportunity for our subscribers and young hitters out there to hear, in my opinion, to one of the best in the game that ever played. And when I say that, the very first thing, I've got a few questions for you. If you were to break down your whole hitting philosophy in 3 words, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think it would be having a well-developed mindset, it would be to make sure that you have good body feel and that you make sure that you have like a good sequence, a good path to the ball. I feel like those three things I talk about all the time. And I credit that to Jay Miller because he was someone at Mississippi State that had hard conversations with me, again, that fueled me, because there's two things I remember. He would say, he called me Rock. He was like, Rock, you have to be fast on purpose. Like, you're just running. I was in the outfield. He was like, you're just running, but you have no idea or concept of angles. So you have to make sure that you're fast with a purpose. And then he also told me with hitting, like, he was like, no one cares how fast your hands are if you're not able to hit both sides of the plate. So, and that's something that kind of like helped me develop as an athlete too, just understanding, just like how much of the mental part is so important.
And I think for me, what I hear Katie when she says that is, I love it, because I really felt like that's where she would probably going, knowing her like I know her, is that you didn't hear, fast hands, foot down, linear, lateral, rotational, launch angle. I mean, I feel like hitting's almost become like the American diet. There's 5,000 things out there. And, this month it's the cookie diet. Eat as many cookies as you want to so you can lose weight, which I'm all in. If that works, I'm ready to go. So I'm so excited to hear somebody of such a high level that's training young athletes that doesn't harp on like A to B to C, because I think the worst thing that I'm seeing is how many kids that I can go to a field and know exactly who they hit with. Mm-hmm. Because if I can say, oh, this one hits with Katie and this one hits with Iyhia, and I know that based on the way I see their swing, then that kid's not hitting to their caliber. Right. So I feel like there's a lot of canned things that are out there, money making things, all those kind of stuff. So I love to hear that part of it. One more, and then I'll let Katie ask. So in today's era, when you're talking about the speed, what Jay Miller talked to you about, I feel like we are such a power speed era. Like, you're either Helga from East Germany, or you're like this rabbit from the old days of Arizona. Do you have a philosophy on if power is more important, is speed more important? Is there a combination, or do you just go with what the kid has and work from there?
I like to always meet the hitter where they are. So when someone first comes to me for hitting, I want to see how their body naturally moves, and then I work within that. And so I am super, super passionate and intentional about creating a developed plan. So understanding how the swing unlocks for each body type is so important. So because it gives them the freedom to move. And I think that allows the hitter to be open to explore, instead of saying like, this is how you have to move. So a lot of times, like, hitters swing and their swing is off, or they're late getting to the ball because their hip mobility, because their hips are tight. So we have to address all of that. But I think putting hitters in a box, it frustrates them and it limits them, to be honest, especially the younger ones as they develop. So I just always like to meet hitters where they are. We talk about how they naturally move, what feels good. I'm a big, like, what did that feel like? And I've learned to do that because I might see something, but if they don't feel it, then I don't say it. So I might say like, oh, I don't feel like she got her, I don't know, hands through. And I'm like, hey, how'd that feel? Like, great. Okay, great. Well, tell me what was great about that. So that way I know that we're thinking on this, or I can meet her where she is in regards to developing. So I try not to just feed. So that way they can think for themselves on like how to move and feel.
Okay. Can we just stop the whole podcast and just run that over and over and over right. and over again? Because that, to me, and I think what happens as you do get older, like I tell you, start to lose your filter. That's what I keep saying to people, going, hey, shut up. Like, let them play these electronics, the things. Like, I don't even know if these kids put their uniforms on without a text that says,
I know.
Socks,
they're like robots.
Now stirrups, now belt, So, mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's the thing that I'm trying to be on a mission and say, I want freedom. I want freedom. I want freedom for these kids, and let them play. Because I think that's why so many kids that are at such a high level, when they go beyond the college, if they get that chance, people see them blossom into a whole nother thing, because now these coaches go, hey, you should know all this. And it's amazing to me how many catchers graduate from college and don't know how to call a game. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you doing? And maybe they won't ever go and coach, but chances are they're going to do something within the sport that they love, for whether it's lessons and stuff. So that's definitely my big thing. So, all right, Kate, your turn. You get to pick your brain.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on this because I feel like, hitting is so hard. You have these hitters, regardless of what level they're at, they have, times where they're in slumps and they can't hit. So what do you find is the biggest mental block when it comes to hitters? Like, what do you see the most of when your hitters come in and they're like, I can't hit. Like, I'm not seeing it. I'm not hitting well. Like, what do you find is the biggest mental block in that?
I can talk about this all day long. Look, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about because it's real. First of all, I validate their feelings because I feel like great hitters feel like they should never feel like that, but it's normal and it's part of the process. So let's meet it head on and then let's figure out how to get through it. But I'm really big on green, yellow, red in regards to your thoughts. So there's two ways that I kind of tackle this. I'm like, okay, tell me what those thoughts are when you get in the box right now. Tell me what they are. Verbalize them. And they're like, do you really want me to say it? I'm like, yeah, I want you to say it. And then I say, when was the last time that you had good thoughts when you got in the box? Like, what did that feel like? What did that look like? What was the pregame warm up? And so that way we can get back to what it was that made you feel really good. So I try to tackle that first. And then from there, we start talking about like, let's make sure that we take mental reps as well as physical reps. So if we start on the tee, I want you to think the same process. What are those thoughts and phrases that you say to yourself when you're in the green zone? And so we start working through that sometimes with tears, right? But it's like, I want to make sure that they have the freedom to be vulnerable and they know that I'm there to catch them. I think that if we try to put that out there and try to give them all that information and then we don't know how to teach them through it, it spirals them. So we talk about that. And then I always say like every hitter has their thing. And so especially hitters who've been with me for a while, like maybe it's like they tend to cast out. Maybe it's they don't use their legs. And I say always deal with the root and not the branches. So like the root of your swing, when you unlock it, the thing that you mess up on the most is your, I don't know, lower leg drive. Start there. Because if you start trying to deal with the branches, then you just lose yourself and you lose your swing. So always go back to the root, always, which is also segues into a spiritual component too. But if you start with the root, then you can start understanding like, okay, now I can start like feeling good again. I know like what it feels like. But for hitters, when they spiral, they're trying to think of so many different things. Like they're grasping for something to hold on to. And like, I want to make sure that they have the right anchors to pull them back to that root. So we do a lot of mental work with the hitters and it's hard. It's really hard because one day you can go and you feel great. And then the next day you're like, how? And it's so frustrating because it's like, no one knows, but it is normal. But I just try really hard to make sure, even in my high school team, like how do we build in culture pieces to help in those tough moments? So that way you always have an outlet, always.
I love that.
It's really
I
funny
love
that you
it's
say
led
that.
to. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, I love that it's like player led. So when they do go to college, they do get out there where maybe they can't, go see you every single day. They know how to get out of it. I just love that part of it. So it's not, just on you. Like they can figure it out for themselves.
Well, it's really funny you say those things because for me, and I just add on to it, and I'm not as philosophical. I'm not a doctor. So for me, I relate it back to Macy. So this summer, she started in her first 2 weekends. I was like, I think you might need to go JUCO. Like she couldn't hit the side of a barn, and I knew we were transitioning and I knew she was putting a ton of stress on herself because she'd moved up to Jazz's new team and we're seeing better pitching and all that stuff. And Mississippi high school pitching compared to that level's two different things. So there was an adjustment period. And I mean, I could just watch the frustration building up in her. And I'm mom, so I'm not coach, I'm mom. And finally, like she was sitting there and I could see it. I said, just in the car, I said, hey, she said, what? I said, if you can't hit, get hit. Just be offense. And she looked at me and she was like, well, I think the very next weekend she got hit like 9 times. And she's like, Mom, I got to learn how to hit because I'm hurting. We started laughing and I was like, well, if you don't want to get hit, you're pretty fast. You can always bunt for it. Well, that weekend we were up in Kansas and I kid you not, like, I think she hit 2 balls like she would normally hit to the fence. She had 8 hits on bunts. And I said, quit worrying about the big hits, be offense. I don't care about home runs. Just be offense. And most importantly, compete. Just compete. When you start getting in that slump, if you quit worrying about everything, compete. Find a way, because if you go to that before you let it become so big, that little teeny thing goes away and it's that one day you woke up and you couldn't do it. So quit dwelling on all those things and quit worrying about the freaking outcome. Just become offense, be a table setter. Well, she made like All-American at Kansas and she got 2 balls out of the infield and I looked at her, I'm like, I'm a genius. I'm such a genius. So I think that's the thing that I hear you saying to people. And I think that's what's so cool about hitting in itself is like, it's almost a different game within the game,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I think before there wasn't, when you were playing, I don't know, I didn't feel like there was as much information out there on hitting as there is now. And I think it's good, but you can also have paralysis by analysis as opposed to
I
letting
agree.
your do things, so I love to hear you say that. Okay, last hitting question, then we'll move on to another segment. I feel like, and you guys can correct me if you're wrong, I feel like a lot of young kids' biggest issues in hitting in the youth age is rhythm. Like they have no rhythm. They look, look like a really bad white dancer in middle school at a middle
Mm-hmm.
school dance. Like they're just
Mm-hmm.
terrible. You're like, oh, geez, I hope no one's but it's their rhythm more than anything else. What's a golden nugget you can give a dad that's out there who can't throw a throwing front toss or whatever that is to those young people about just rhythm? Find your rhythm.
Do you know someone who deserves a spotlight? Maybe a coach who inspires, a player with an amazing comeback story, or a team that's playing their best ball right now. Nominate them through our feature forums. It's your chance to shine a light on the people who make the softball world so special. You can go to our website, extrainningsoftball.com, and click on the Get Featured tab to find all feature forms. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a youth issue and just trying to figure that out. I was working with some younger ones yesterday. And so something that clicked with those two younger ones when I was like, hey, let's go big toe to big toe. So if you stay big toe in your back leg and you stay with the pressure point big toe in your front side, then your weight stays in the middle of your body. And so that helped kind of unleash because then there's a pressure point. I'm also not afraid to have them take their shoes off so they can feel the pressure. So, and then they're able to say like, Coach Mac, like when they load or when they're finding their rhythm, I said there's a difference between being on your pinky toe and your big toe, and you got to be able to feel that. And so that feel helps them get back to the center. And I think that that's one thing that can help with the younger hitters. Also, another thing we worked on, a lot of times when they go into their step, all of their weight transfers to the front side of their body. So one thing that I was helping them with is I told them like, hey, think about your elbow, the point of your elbow being in the middle of your body. So the more that gets on the front leg, because that's a visual thing that they can do. And they're like, oh, I can see like my elbow aligned with my front leg versus when my elbow is more in the middle of my body. That's something that they can change instantly. They don't have to have me there to do it. So I think those two things helped kind of unlock. And then when they did, their eye, that's probably one of my favorite things as an instructor, and their eyes get big and they're like, it worked. And so then I was like, then you don't need me. So like when you're working off the tee, those are two things that you can do on your own. I didn't feel the pressure in my big toe on that one. And I can see that my elbow is on the front side of my body on that swing. So, and that'll help line them back up to where they need to be in creating their own rhythm.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to segue into the final section of this podcast because what I'm really excited about, and she's already chastised me as a coach, is putting her in the 2-hole. Is she's going to join us with our new Faith Fridays. And so we're going to keep our Faith segment for our Faith Friday in the 2-hole. And that's only because they both go back to back and I can flip flop them every other game if I want to and win a whole bunch of ball games between Richardson and Iyhia McMichael.
So that's a pretty good one too,
Yeah,
regardless.
I can only screw that up as a coach. It's not
Yeah, right.
So what I would love to do is transition into what's to me so exciting. Number one, because in 2028, the Olympics have softball. And I know it's in Los Angeles and people are upset that it's in Oklahoma. I think it's cool it's in Oklahoma. I'll do anything to avoid LA. So I'm good. I do hope we find a way to get our athletes to the opening or closing ceremonies, one of those, because I think that's such a huge part of that Olympic experience. But maybe we leave that for another segment for a fundraiser to make sure that they get that taken care of for those young people. But I would like to go into and kind of talk about your global grit within the game. You played for Team USA and then you are now coaching the new team. Tell us about that experience. Walk us through that journey because you guys were just in Italy and you got to take your son and it's all over the internet so you can go watch it. It's super cool. Tell us a little bit about that experience and then we'll kind of grill you with some questions.
That it's something that I feel blessed to be a part of every single time. There's not a single time that I'm like, oh, I'm just coaching. Like I understand the importance of what it means to wear those letters across your chest, especially as a player. There's a standard with USA. And so it spoke as a player, it spoke to so much about what I believed in. I feel like it's threaded within my spirit, within my soul of like hard work, standards, you do everything with class. So those are the intangibles that I feel like I already had as a player. And so just being around other like-minded athletes that had the same goal and the same level of commitment when you step on the field, it was unquestionable. And so it just brought me up to another level. And I just have so much respect for the players that are able to wear those letters across their chest, because it means that they did something that was worthy of putting on the highest platform, which is wearing those letters across your chest. And so being able to be a coach in that, I think the first time that I was with the U15s, I was thinking like, what can I add? What can I bring to these players to help them through that process? Because it is the same game, but it's different. And so like the game can speed up on you and it can get overwhelming. So just trying to help them like stay in the moment and just have real conversations. I think what's important as a coach is allowing the players to have those real feelings of like, I'm nervous or I'm anxious, instead of saying like, you're not supposed to feel that way, you're with USA. I think that it shuts them down and it feels like they're doing something wrong. And then as they're training, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to have this feeling. And so I think that that's something that I do really well with players as a coach, is like, hey, tell me what you're thinking right now. Tell me how you're feeling. And then we talk through it, because if you already talk through like the worst case scenario, then you've already like worked through it in your mind. So, and then just recently in Italy, I was a part of all of the offense, which was something that was new for me. And so I remember thinking like, am I good enough? Like, am I good enough to have control of the hitters and their mindset playing these other countries? And so I'm thankful that I had people in my life that were like, had to remind me like, you like, you know what you're doing, like, you know what it takes. And so just be you. And I think that just helped me like think of like, what are the things that I feel like I'm really good at? And then how can I make sure that I help the kids do the same? So, and then just having my son there, it is literally a trip I will never, ever forget. And just having him there and seeing like what it looks like of players, playing at the highest level. So I am always appreciative, super humble, and thankful that I've been chosen to be a part of that process.
It's so cool.
And you're coaching 15U, which I think is a really cool age. Like, I think that's a really good middle ground of they're just now, I feel like, hitting that peak of high school and development, but then also they're still young. They haven't got to the recruiting process or anything like that yet. So tell me like some of the biggest lessons you feel like your athletes had learned playing overseas internationally in Italy.
Yes, I think culture is a big one. I mean, I think that that's something that's often overlooked, but plays a huge part. I mean, you're thousands of miles away, your body clock is off. It's supposed to be nighttime. The food, all of that plays. So you're really excited for the first couple of days, and then it starts settling in. Like, I'm really all the way over here. I think too, kind of just what I touched on earlier, is sometimes they feel like they have to have this like big performance to justify that have USA across their chest. And so I just tell them all the time, like, it's all the little things that add up to the big moments. Just kind of walking through that with them. And then just also with me, I teach high school, so I feel like I can relate, like all the things that pop up. I'm like, oh, okay. And so just kind of working through, and just remembering they're 15. They're 14 and 15.
They're babies.
And so, I mean, I'm just like, one, you have this really incredible opportunity. And two, like, just know that like you already did something really, really awesome to get in this uniform. So like, I remember when I was talking to them in the Mexico game, I was like, you are good enough. If you were not good enough, you wouldn't have this uniform on. And so like, take a deep breath, like breathe, relax, and just trust. Like, you don't have to add a gift. You have the gift of whatever you have. So it's not like you're expected to like find a new one to justify that you're here. And so just kind of helping ease that and just giving them tools. Like, I think the biggest thing is just giving them tools instead of saying like, don't feel like that. You're not supposed to feel like that. So like, oh, I understand how you feel. Like, why don't we try this? And so I think that just gives them freedom to be who they are.
That's so cool. What's the thing that sticks out to you most about this group of kids? Because obviously you get pretty intimate when you're in that kind of settings of what the things they don't like. What's the thing that you can tell people about the 15U USA team that really in the next 2 to 3 years, they're going to be able to start seeing as individuals? Mm-hmm. So what is some of the things or takeaways that you go, if I were describing this squad, whether it's certain individuals is fine or the squad itself, like what is it?
they value relationships and connection. That is at the core of who they are. That's, you know, I remember years ago, I was trying to figure out, like, do I want to go high school? Do I want to go college? I kind of dabbled in both. And I remember listening to this guy talk, and he said, I understood that for what I feel like I'm purposed and called to do, I don't need to be at such and such level to do it. That was life changing for me because I realized, like, what I feel like I am called to do as a coach, I don't need to be at the college level to do it. Like, I need to be at the high school level because this is the age that I feel like I'm called to do it, which is so different. And they are growing me because I didn't grow up like that. I never hung out in Coach Miller's office, never wanted to hang out in my coach's office. But at the high school level, they're in my classroom before school, during lunch. They want to hang out in the office. And I struggled with that at the beginning of my career because I was thinking, like, how can I build? I feel like if I built that connection and I was too close, then it would be hard for me to, like, say the hard things. But I've learned that it actually makes it easier. And then we're able to work through it. And they know that, like, once I say it, it's coming from a place of, like, helping them be better instead of like critiquing them. And then also on that note too, I feel like with my team in particular, when I went to Japan, something that I was not expecting when I came back, they felt like I came back and was like, oh my gosh, I have to teach them, you know? And I was like, wow, in my mind, I never thought that that's how they would ever feel. And so I just am learning that it has to be connection first. They want to not necessarily we call it like being your friend, but they want to know, you know, what you think and like build things to get to know you better as a coach. So that way, when you have to lay the hammer down, that they know it's coming from a good place. And I think that that's a place that I have grown as a coach is like, that has to be on the forefront. They want connection, they value connection, and they want to be like around you.
I love hearing you say that because I've always believed that if girls know that their name is safe in your mouth, they'll run through a wall for you and you can beat them up. Like you can beat them up and they'll still come back, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is such a cool thing. And I think, you know, we could transition into thousands, the NIL, the portal, all those different things. I think it's the social media that makes kids crave that even more now than when you played or when I played, because we didn't have that. The pressures that these young women have are so different than what we did. And I'm not going to say it's that much worse or that much better. It's just completely different, but it's on the soapbox that everybody can watch. So your high school players see what you're doing and they perceive that that's bigger and better than they can ever be, not realizing, trying to draw from you. So I think that's such a cool thing. And any coach, college coach, high school travel that listens and taps into that, I think those are the things that are the most valued for sure. Absolutely. All right. I have one last question and then we will wrap this up. Was there a moment with this team, because I think knowing who you are, it's probably every team in your self-reflection, but with the team in USA, where you were standing off the field or on the field and you go, yeah, this is why I coach. This is why I do what I do. Or what am I doing? I guess I should say.
Yeah, I think yes. To answer that question, yes. And I think it was when I realized, because like I was going through it too, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I am the offensive mind behind Team USA. When I said it like that, I was like, this is bigger than me. But then again, I was thinking it is bigger than me. And that's why I serve a mighty, mighty God, because I'm like, I am put in this position for a reason. Okay, God, now show me. Show me. And I had to remind myself the same thing I tell my players, like my gifts is what got me here. My gifts are personal connection, relationship building. And so when I was working through the pregame hitting, I started using that time purposefully, and I saw them soften, and I literally felt like they were like, breathe, like relax, like, okay, like, yes, she has this, but she's also asking me like, because my question is like, tell me one thing that made you smile today. And they were like, and that kind of just like softened the blow. So I realized, like, gosh, like my gifts will make room for me. Like I do feel called, and I am excited and purposeful to be here. And so all I could do is be me. And so I didn't have to be someone different because I had this new title for USA.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, Katie, do you have any last questions for Dr. Mack, the hitting guru, legend from Mississippi State, SEC Player of the Year. We're working on her staying humble and being grounded. So anyways, just literally say I'm old, but that's okay. Anything else that you'd like to?
Yeah, I just want to give you a platform to kind of tell people where they can find you. If they're in your area and they're like, man, I want to get some lessons from her, go to your social media, anything like that, just kind of give you the floor on where to find you and how to get connected with you.
Yes, so I am currently in Frisco, Texas, McKinney. They're all kind of blend in together. So I work in a facility there called Pop Athletics. And so you can find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram, and it's at Hitting with Mac. I also have TikTok that's the same, at Hitting with Mac. So you can contact me through there. I also do virtual. And then something that I'm really passionate about is I'm really passionate about developing the whole hitter, because I feel like that unlocks you. Like it just can't just be swinging and hitting softballs. And so I do plans for hitters that want like spiritual, like how can we implement my scripture and my faith into what I'm doing? And so workout plans, hitting plans. And so if you are interested in any of that, like I can definitely help develop something specifically for you as well. So
I don't think people realize what a blessing it is with our sport, but with people like you, that you guys are truly accessible. Like just DM them on Instagram and say, hey, I live in Alaska and I don't have a hitting coach. And I heard this podcast and I want what you're teaching. Because I don't think there's anything that I brag about COVID, but if there's anything great that came out of COVID is this. It has made you accessible to anyone who wants it. And if you want something bad enough, you'll go to any lengths to get it. So I would challenge all the young people out there, don't be afraid to DM the legends like Iyhia McMichael or Richardson and say, look, this is what I want, because that is what's so cool about our sport. It's probably one of the biggest reasons I'm still active within the sport is the accessibility of people who have been there and done that want to pass the torch. And I hope that our sport never loses that. So thank you for joining us.
Yes,
and
you.
Like I said, she's hitting in the 2-hole, and I think she's going to go yard, and Dot's going to get on base. So we'll be up by 2-0 this Friday of Faith Friday. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Voices from the Field, presented by Extra Innings Softball. Don't forget to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on Spotify, and visit our website at extrainningssoftball.com for more stories, rankings, and updates from around the game. We'll see you guys next week.